The church bell groaned as it swung in the dry wind, its cracked mouth coughing a dull clang that drifted over Deadwood Crossing. Dust rolled like smoke down the main street, and Clara Boone pulled her shawl tighter against the grit biting at her cheeks. From the porch of the saloon came the hiss of laughter. "There she goes again," a cowhand muttered, boot heels scraping wood. Midwife with empty arms, another spat, sending a stream of brown tobacco juice into the dirt. "Best keep your babies close. She'll jinx him sure enough." Clara kept her eyes forward. The hem of her dress gathered dust with every step, boots sinking deep into the thirsty road. She could feel them staring, always staring. A woman outside the mercantile clutched her boy's hand tight, whispering sharp, as though Clara carried sickness. A gaggle of young girls tittered by the trough, whispering the same cruel refrain that had followed Clara for years. A midwife with no children of her own. She passed them silent, her jaw locked, eyes set toward the horizon where the land cracked wide open into desert. The sound of wagon wheels creaked behind her, a team dragging timber slow through the street. The driver tipped his hat, polite but wary, like a man greeting a storm cloud. The church bell gave another broken clang. Inside the small cabin at the edge of town, Clara set her basket down, the glass vials within clinking soft against one another. She lit a lamp, flame flaring and settling with a low hum. The room smelled of sage and lavender, herbs drying in bundles along the beams. On the table lay her worn ledger, filled with the names of children she had ushered into the world. Pages upon pages, but none bore her own. The latch rattled sudden. "Clara," a voice rasped. She turned. Jonas McGraw stood in the doorway, dust thick on his coat, his hat hanging limp in one hand. In the other, he cradled his little girl. The child's skin burned red, her breath shallow, hair plastered to her brow with sweat. "Help her," Jonas said, voice cracking like dry timber. Clara pulled the lamp closer, eyes narrowing at the fever's flush. She pressed her palm to the girl's chest, steady as stone despite the pounding in her ribs. The child stirred, a whimper thin as wind escaping her throat. "Set her down," Clara said. Jonas obeyed, laying the girl across Clara's cot. He hovered, hands trembling, as Clara opened her basket, fingers moving fast. Corks popped, powders sifted, steam rose as she mixed tinctures with water from the jug. "Breathe," she whispered, easing the spoon between the child's lips. "Just breathe, little bird." Jonas' eyes never left her. In the flicker of lamplight, the lines carved into his face seemed deeper, carved by years of loss and labor. His wife's death had left him raw. The whole town knew, though no one dared speak it aloud. The girl coughed once, then again, a wet rattle. Clara pressed a damp cloth to her brow, murmuring low as thunder. Hours dragged like chains. The wind outside screamed against the shutters, dust rattling like bones. Jonas paced the floorboards, boots heavy, until at last the girl's breath steadied. Her skin cooled. Clara drew the blanket to her chin and sat back, shoulders sagging from the weight of waiting. Jonas let out a breath that shook him whole. "God Almighty," he whispered. The lamp hissed low. Shadows leaned long across the walls. Jonas turned, his eyes set on Clara, hard as stone, yet soft beneath. "You saved her." Clara looked away, fingers folding the cloth with care. "I did what I could." He stepped closer. "Clara, a child needs a mother." Her hands froze. The words landed heavier than gunfire. She raised her eyes, and in them burned all the years of whispers, laughter, and lonely nights staring at empty cradles. Jonas' voice carried no jest, no pity, only truth. "And maybe you need a family." The lamp sputtered, smoke curling into the rafters. Clara said nothing. Outside, the church bell gave one last cracked clang, then silence swallowed Deadwood Crossing whole. The saloon doors flung wide with a crash, lantern light spilling into the street like fire across dust. Laughter roared, sharp as broken glass. "There she is," a voice barked. "Widow McGraw's gone mad. Sitting his girl in the arms of that barren crow." Boots stomped the porch boards, spurs clinking. Clara felt every eye cutting into her as she walked beside Jonas, his daughter nestled weak but breathing against her shoulder. Jonas kept stride, jaw set, hat low. Clara kept her chin high. She would not bend. From the corner, a hand clapped the railing. Caleb Harker leaned forward, grin spreading under a shadowed brim. His brothers flanked him, 3 jackals in coats stiff with dust. "Jonas," Caleb drawled, voice thick with whiskey, "ain't you learned not to tether yourself to bad luck? This woman's touched by emptiness. You put her near your ranch, it'll rot faster in a cow left in the sun." The saloon laughed, cruel and eager. A glass shattered on the floor, the hiss of ale running across boards. Jonas stopped dead in the road. His voice came low, a rumble beneath the laughter. "Watch your mouth." Caleb's grin widened. "Or what? You'll sick the midwife on me? Maybe she'll birth me a ghost." The laughter doubled. Clara felt the burn crawl up her throat, but her eyes stayed locked on Caleb. Her words slid sharp as a knife across stone. A man so loud with whiskey in his blood ought to remember. Her voice cut through the noise, cold and steady. Babies cry louder than cowards. The saloon hushed. For the space of a breath, only the wind spoke, dragging grit across the boards. Caleb's smile faltered, teeth flashing wolfish, but the crowd had lost its laugh. Jonas shifted closer to Clara, his hand brushing his coat where the iron weight of his pistol rested. Caleb spat, brown spit darkening the dirt. "This ain't over," he muttered, and the Harkers slipped back into shadow. The night bled long by the time Jonas lit the lantern inside his ranch house. The walls glowed warm against the black sweep of desert beyond. Clara eased the child into bed, her small breath steady now, cheeks no longer burning with fever. Jonas stood in the doorway, hat in his hands, shoulders heavy as a man carrying more than cattle. His eyes fixed on Clara like he'd already made a choice the world would scorn. "She needs you," he said. Clara straightened, tucking the blanket close around the girl. "I've done what I could. She'll grow stronger." Jonas shook his head. "I don't mean just tonight." The lamp flickered, wind whining at the shutters. Clara turned to him, her eyes narrowing. He didn't falter. "You've spent years bringing life into this town, yet they spit on you like you were poison. My girl's got no mother, and I got no partner to see her through. I can't offer you riches or peace, but I can offer a home. You give her what you've given everyone else. Only this time, it'll be yours." Clara's hand stilled on the blanket. Her heart beat hard against her ribs. For a moment, all she heard was the wind pushing dust against the glass. "I ain't a skin for pity," Jonas said. "I'm a skin for truth. My girl needs a mother, and I reckon you. You need to stop carrying this weight alone." The silence stretched long, thick as rope. Clara felt the ghosts in it. The whispers, the laughter, the years of being less than whole in the eyes of others. From the corner of her mind came the Harker brothers' sneer, their threats hanging like storm clouds. Her answer came quiet, but it cut through the dark. "If I do this, if I stand with you, it won't be for the town. It won't be for their eyes or their tongues. It'll be for her." She brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face, her voice steady. "Only her." Jonas bowed his head, and for the first time that night, his shoulders eased. The next morning, the town saw them together, Clara riding beside Jonas on the narrow wagon bench, his daughter between them. Whispers crawled like snakes across the street. Women leaned close, mouths twisted in disbelief. Men tipped hats stiffly, their eyes sharp with judgment. On the saloon porch, Caleb Harker watched, arms folded, grin mean. "A curse hitching itself to a rancher," he muttered, loud enough for the street to hear. "Reckon the vultures will be full by harvest." Clara met his stare as they passed. Her gaze did not falter. The wagon wheels clattered over the ruts, iron rims sparking in the morning sun. Jonas guided the reins, silent, his jaw tight. Beside him, Clara felt the weight of every eye. But she did not lower her head. The road stretched on, the desert yawning wide, and above it all the old cracked church bell gave a single, hollow clang. The wind howled across Deadwood Crossing, flinging grit like knives against the shutters. Clouds of dust rolled low, swallowing the sun until the world turned the color of rusted iron. Horses shrieked in their pens, boards rattled, ropes snapped against fence posts like whips. Jonas McGraw shoved the barn door closed with his shoulder, the storm nearly tearing it from its hinges. Clara was already there, rope in hand, hair lashed across her face. Together they dropped the beam into place, the wood shuddering under the force. "They'll use this weather," she said, voice raised above the roar. Jonas turned, breath heaving, dust caked to his skin. "You think so?" Clara's eyes were hard. "Men like the Harkers don't wait for clear skies. They wait for cover." Lightning split the horizon, painting the desert in flashes of white. In the brief flare, Jonas saw the outline of her face, steady, unflinching. Inside the house, the girl whimpered, the storm rattling her awake. Clara moved quick, pressing the shutters tight, whispering low to calm her. Jonas watched from the doorway, a man torn between fear for his land and awe for the woman who had stepped into it. But the storm outside was not the only one brewing. By evening, the saloon burned with talk. The Harker brothers leaned against the bar, whiskey sloshing in their glasses, their words carried above the wind, shrieking at the roof. "McGraw thinks he's untouchable," Caleb spat, slamming his drink down. "That ranch of his should have been ours when his wife died. And now he drags that barren witch under his roof. No, we end this." A man at the table shifted uneasy. "Storm's bad, Caleb. No night for right." Caleb's grin split wide, teeth yellow in the lantern light. "No better night. Dust hides bullets same as a hides tracks." The brothers laughed, a sound that cut jagged through the storm's roar. At the ranch, Clara knelt on the floorboards, her hands steady though her chest burned with unease. From beneath the planks, she drew up a small, iron-banded chest. Dust clung to it thick as memory. Jonas froze as she slid it open. Inside lay a revolver. Not the crude iron of a ranch hand, but a weapon polished, cared for. The steel gleamed even in the dim light, the wood grip worn smooth by use. Jonas' voice came low, rough. "That don't belong to McGraw's widow." Clara lifted her eyes to him, shadows dancing across her face. "No, it belongs to Boone's wife, the woman I used to be." She rose, the gun in her hand steady as the floor beneath her feet. Jonas said nothing. He only watched, realization dawning that Clara Boone had lived a life the town had long forgotten, one written not in cradles and herbs, but in powder and lead. The storm slammed against the house, thunder rolling like war drums. The girl stirred again in her bed, and Clara bent to tuck the blanket close. "Sleep, little bird," she whispered, the revolver heavy at her side. Near midnight, the storm reached its height. Dust blotted out the moon. Lightning forked across the sky. Through the blur, silhouettes moved. Horses, 3 of them, their riders hunched against the wind. The Harker brothers, creeping like wolves toward prey. Inside, Clara stood at the window, eyes narrowed at the shifting shapes. She could taste the grit on her tongue, feel the storm clawing at the roof. Her hand rested on the revolver's grip, her breath calm, measured. Jonas came beside her, rifle in his arms, jaw set. "They're coming." Clara nodded once. "Then let them." The first shot cracked, muffled by the howl of the storm. A bullet splintered the fence post, wood flying in jagged shards. Jonas swung the rifle to his shoulder, firing back into the dust. A horse shrieked, a figure reeled, but the storm swallowed the sound. Clara moved like water, crossing the room to the door. Jonas caught her arm. "This ain't your fight," he hissed. Her eyes burned into his. "It became mine the moment they mocked me in front of your girl." She wrenched free, stepping into the storm, dust swirling wild around her. Lightning split the sky, and in its blaze she looked like something risen from the earth itself, shawl whipping, revolver steady, eyes fixed. The Harker brothers saw her then, and for the first time their laughter faltered. The storm screamed. Thunder cracked. Horses circled in the gloom. Caleb's voice rose through the roar. "We'll burn you out, McGraw. You and your Baron witch both." Clara's answer came with steel. The revolver barked once, the flash bright against the storm. A bullet hissed past Caleb's ear, close enough to slice his hat clean off. His horse bucked, nearly throwing him. "I'm no witch," Clara called, voice cold as stone. "But I've buried men faster than you before." Silence fell sharp, the storm itself pausing around her words. The Harker brothers hesitated. Caleb cursed, raising his gun, but the doubt was in his eyes now. The storm was theirs, and yet, so was she. Inside, Jonas reloaded, every nerve burning. His daughter whimpered in her sleep, unaware of the battle clawing at her doorstep. He looked to the doorway, saw Clara standing against the storm, and for the first time he understood she was not only midwife, not only widow. She was something the desert itself had forged. The storm raged on. The Harker brothers regrouped, circling wide. Clara's revolver gleamed, ready, her stance unyielding. The dust storm gathered heavier still, swallowing the land whole. And in its heart, 3 men rode toward reckoning, and 1 woman waited, unmoving, unafraid. Lightning split the sky, white fire tearing jagged across the black. Clara Boone stood in the doorway, revolver steady, the storm clawing her shawl into ribbons. Dust whipped around her boots, grit stinging her eyes, but her stance did not waver. The Harker brothers rode hard, shadows against the storm. Caleb led, pistol raised, his grin twisted against the flash of lightning. "Into the line, midwife," he bellowed. The thunder swallowed his words, but Clara heard. Her finger tightened, the hammer clicked, and the revolver barked. Caleb's hat flew, the bullet tearing clean through its crown. His horse screamed, rearing high, nearly throwing him. He clung to the reins, eyes wide now, the grin ripped from his face. Jonas fired from the window, his rifle cracking into the storm. A second rider's shoulder jerked, the man spinning, nearly toppling before he righted himself in the saddle. The storm howled, drowning all but the thunder of hooves. Clara stepped forward, dust swirling at her ankles. Her voice carried clear, sharp as broken glass. "You wanted a witch?" Her eyes burned like coals. "Then reckon with one." The brothers circled wide, their horses' flanks slick with sweat, eyes rolling white in the storm's fury. Caleb's pistol lifted again, but Clara moved first. The revolver's flash lit her face, cold, unflinching. His gun flew from his hand, wrenched by the bullet strike. Caleb screamed, clutching his arm, rage boiling louder than the thunder. "You think one gun makes you something, woman?" he roared. Clara's eyes never left him. "Not one gun." She raised the revolver again, steady as if born to it, the storm bending around her. The youngest Harker spurred his horse, charging blind through the dust. Jonas swung his rifle, but the shot went wide, swallowed by the storm. The rider leveled his pistol at the doorway, at Clara, at the child behind her. Clara pivoted, the revolver booming once more. The horse stumbled, screaming, and the rider tumbled hard into the dirt. His pistol flew free, spinning into the dark. He did not rise. The wind screamed, the dust cutting deeper. Jonas shouted through the storm. "Clara, inside!" But she did not move. She stepped further into the night, her shawl torn free, hair whipping like black fire. Her revolver smoked, the storm painting her as something more than flesh. Caleb's last brother wheeled close, eyes wild, fear twisting him. "She's no midwife," he cried. "She's a devil." Clara's gaze cut through him, cold as steel. "I bury my husband with this gun. Don't think I won't bury you." The rider faltered, reins slipping in his grip. He looked to Caleb, but Caleb's rage had blinded him. "Kill her," Caleb roared, blood running down his sleeve. "Kill her, or I'll kill you myself." But the storm was louder than Caleb now. The rider pulled back, turning his horse, spurring it into the dust. His figure vanished, swallowed by the desert's roar. Only Caleb remained. He dismounted, stumbling through the storm, pistol clutched in his left hand, blood dripping into the dust. He staggered toward Clara, teeth bared, his eyes red with fury. "You ain't taki my land, woman," he spat. "You ain't taki my pride." Clara stepped forward, revolver level. Lightning flashed. Shadows leapt across her face. "I never wanted your land," she said, her voice low, deadly. "And pride's a fool's coffin." Caleb lunged, gun rising, finger on the trigger. The cracks split the storm. Caleb froze, eyes wide. Slowly, he dropped to his knees, his pistol falling into the dirt. His body sagged, blood blooming dark across his chest. He pitched forward, swallowed by the dust. Clara lowered the revolver, her breath steady, smoke curling from the barrel. The storm began to break, the wind easing, dust falling slow as ash. Jonas stepped out into the open, rifle in hand, his eyes fixed on Clara. She stood motionless, revolver still in her grip, the body of Caleb Harker at her feet. For a long moment, the land was silent but for the hiss of the dying wind. Jonas' voice came quiet, heavy with awe. "Clara Boone, who are you?" She turned, her eyes meeting his. The old name rose in her chest like a ghost, bitter on her tongue. "Clara Steele," she said, "wife to a gunfighter once. And when he fell, I swore never to raise this iron again." Her gaze dropped to the revolver, her hand shaking now that the storm was done. She holstered it slow, the leather creaking. "But sometimes," she whispered, "life don't give us peace. It gives us reckonings." At dawn, the sky cleared wide and blue, the desert shining clean after the storm's rage. Word spread fast through Deadwood Crossing, how the Harker gang had fallen, how Jonas McGraw's ranch still stood, how the midwife they mock had faced men with iron and walked away. Some called her cursed still, others called her a savior. But none dared laugh at Clara Boone again. On the porch of the ranch house, Jonas' daughter pressed her small hand into Clara's. The girl's eyes were bright, clear, no longer fevered. Clara curled her fingers around the child's, her throat tight with something deeper than words. Jonas watched, his face carved by the first hint of peace he'd shown in years. He laid a hand on Clara's shoulder. "You gave her life," he said, "not just through fever, but through all of this." Clara shook her head faintly. "No, she gave me mine." The storyteller's voice carries it on, the firelight flickering in his eyes. They mocked her for childlessness, said she weren't fit to be a mother. But when the storm came, it was her hand steadied the ranch, her gun steadied the land, and her heart steadied a child that weren't her own by birth, but was hers all the same. And to this day, when the dust rises over Deadwood Crossing, folks swear they see a figure in the storm, shawl torn, eyes burning, revolver in hand. The widow Boone, they whisper, not cursed, not broken, but the woman who turned judgment into legend.